Ariel Helwani post-fight at Invicta FC number 11 alongside Invicta president Shannon Knapp. And Shannon, first off, thank you for having us at the event. A great show. And before we get into the actual fights, this felt like a very special deal for your promotion. You know, you had Lorenzo Fertitta, Dana White, many MMA luminaries. Was this almost as special as maybe the first Invicta? It felt a little different than some of the others.
Yeah, I think it was definitely special to be in a place where everybody can attend the event and show that support. Yeah, it is special. You know, on a weekend like this where we're going before the UFC, we're all women. You know, tomorrow night is UFC, and, you know, it's co-main and headlined by women. I think it makes it incredibly special.
And then, of course, you have the Cyborg Ronda storyline. You couldn't have scripted a better scenario than this, right?
Absolutely not.
Maybe you did script it.
Maybe I did. But the funny thing is, you know, until during the post-fight press conference, you know, I didn't realize that there was a difference of 46 seconds and 49 seconds. Wasn't that pretty cool, too, as well?
What do you think of Cyborg's performance overall? Was that what you expected out of her against Charmaine? A lot of people weren't giving Charmaine much of a shot.
You know, I think that it was unfair not to give her, you know, the respect and having the shot. You know, she's had some impressive wins. You know, she seemed very geared up and ready for it. But come on, that's Cyborg, you know. And when Cyborg's on, Cyborg's like a freight train, you know. So, yeah. I mean, did I expect that? Yeah, but I didn't count Charmaine out.
At this point, are you having a hard time finding Cyborg opponents?
No, you know, the funny thing about it is there are a lot of athletes that want to fight Cyborg. You know, I just think as a promoter, it's my responsibility to make sure they're adequate matchups, and that's experience-wise. So we have a lot of new 145-pounders coming up through the ranks, so she'll have plenty of opponents until, you know, if and when she decides to make that drop.
So you announced another big piece of news, and it's kind of playing off this weekend, July 10th, Las Vegas, the night before UFC 189, International Fight Week. Cyborg will fight again for you. Who will she fight? You didn't announce that.
You know, we have a couple different opponents we're looking at, and we really haven't made that decision. And we'll have a couple, you know, fights in between there, so, you know, which could line up somebody in particular. But we'll have to get back on that one, see where everything shakes out.
Can I tell you something I heard?
Sure.
I heard that she was going to fight this fight at 145, and her next fight, which would be July 10th, would be at 135. Could that happen?
You know, I think that right now, you know, Cyborg's working with a nutritionalist, and I think what we're going to do is wait to see how that transition goes. Okay. You know, I think that a little time is not going to hurt. So even if she has to come back in and fight at 45, you know, we'll be able to accommodate that and continue to work towards her making the 35.
You always have to answer these questions about the UFC relationship, and will this person, does it get annoying after a while? Do you feel disrespected by these questions?
You know, no, because I'm curious by nature as well, and let's face it, there's always a conspiracy, you know, everybody always thinks there is. You know, but the bottom line is they've been extremely great partners to me, and I own my company, I run all my production, I do everything myself. So we are very much two separate companies, but they're very supportive, and, you know, who could ask for, you know, when you're in a partnership, any relationship, that's the best thing to have, is a supportive partner.
At this point, as an MMA fan and promoter, do you want to see that Cyborg Ronda fight, or do you not want to lose Cyborg?
Oh, you know, for me, like I said before, it's the Manny Pacquiao, you know, and Mayweather fight. This is the biggest fight. I mean, you have two champions that have been incredibly dominating in their divisions. So yeah, I mean, this is I'm a fan, you know, and this is a fight I want to see.
If you were a betting woman, would you bet it happens in our lifetime in the next year or two?
I think we're much closer than we've ever been. I mean, incredibly close to that. I think if Cyborg can cut that weight safely, effectively, and not lose complete strength and feel confident that the fight's on.
You do a tremendous job of finding new talent. Even though some of your stars have gone to the UFC, sometimes your whole division goes to the UFC, you continue to bring out new talent. And Alexa Grasso is one of those. When's the first time you heard of her? When did you hear of her, and when did you know that she could be the star that she is becoming?
You know, I'm trying to think when I signed her, because I signed her a while back. You know, we had her manager, it was a mutual friend, and called me and said, hey, I've got these two girls out of Mexico. I'd never seen them, anything about them, but I trusted, you know, that what he was saying, brought them in, and from day one, you know, the minute they competed, you're just like, wow. So, you know, they're great you know, they're going to be great champions. I think they're going to be superstars in the sport. You know, they're both incredibly talented.
So she had a great win over Mizuki Inoue. What do you think is next for her? Any idea yet?
For Alexa?
Yeah.
we'll kind of see. It's all fresh and new. But I also want to say Mizuki's very talented as well, very talented. So, Julie and I are going to talk about that and make some decisions, but she's moving really fast and towards that belt. So, I could see her maybe this year.
A lot of people, including myself, think that with the UFC going to Mexico very soon, that she and Aldana might make her way over there. Is that possible, or do you have a stranglehold on their contracts?
Definitely Shelby and I always go back and forth with this, but no, they're going to be here for a little bit. Yeah, but the thing is they want to be here. And they're very young, and to continue to help build them, and also just get that experience that they're going to need to when they do make that transition, if they do, to sustain it. And be very competitive in that weight class.
As I mentioned, Dana White, Lorenzo Fertitta here. Did they say anything about the show? This was their first Invicta event, I believe. Did they say anything to you?
Yeah, no, they thought it was a great show, They were excited to come in the first place, which, I'm very flattered that they would come and support us. So, yeah, I think they had a good time.
Those are promoting geniuses. Look what they've done with the UFC. Did they give you any pointers? I like this, I don't like this. Did you talk shop like that?
Not so much like that, but, listen, come on, I've known them for years. I've been learning whether I worked with them, against them, or what it was. They are the ones, why reinvent the wheel? They've got it perfected, so.
Any other performance you want to point out that really stood out to you? I know you gave out the bonuses, but anyone on the undercard that you were really proud of, excited about?
J.J. Aldridge and Jamie Moyle, that was a great fight, But you know what? I'm so biased to this because I think all my athletes put on great performances. I'm never disappointed about that. When you look at the fans and they're so excited and you're walking out, they're like, great show, top to bottom. How could you be disappointed in that?
Finally, I know your next event is April 10th, and then we have July 10th, right, in Las Vegas. Will you try to link up with the UFC events more now that you saw that tonight's event was such a success?
I think I'll have a conversation with them about it. We'll see, what we do next. But yeah, we're definitely going to do the July 10th event in Vegas. And I think that's going to be great because that's a huge weekend with the UFC Expo. And we'll just kind of play it from, by ear and see what happens.
Where will that be? Which venue, do you know?
We don't know yet. We just made the decision, to pull the trigger on that. So.
Well done. Congratulations on a great event, and looking forward to the next one.
Thank you very much.